आप देगी। I will further be allocating to the Integrated Child Development Scheme another 1,500 crores, to Integrated Child Protection Scheme another 500 crores, and to the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana another 3,000 crores, and an initial inflow of rupees 5,000 crores into the National Infrastructure Investment Fund, which I have just announced. Financial markets. One vital factor in promoting India, including the infrastructure sector, is deepening of the Indian bond markets, which will have to bring at the same level as our world-class equity market. I intend to begin this process this year by setting up a public debt management agency which will bring both India's external borrowings and domestic debt under one roof. I also propose to merge the Forward Markets Commission with SEBI to strengthen the regulation of the commodity forward market and reduce wild speculation. Enabling legislation amending Government Securities Act and the RBI Act is proposed in the Finance Bill. Capital accounts controls is a policy rather than a regulatory matter. I propose to amend through the Finance Bill Section 6 of FEMA to clearly provide that control of capital flows as equity will be exercised by the government. A properly functioning capital market also requires proper consumer protection. I therefore propose to create a task force to establish a sector-neutral financial redressal agency that will give grievances against all financial service providers that will address. I am also glad to inform the House that the work assigned to the Task Force on Financial Data Management Center, Financial Sector Appellate Tribunal, the Resolution Corporation, the Public Debt Management Agency are progressing satisfactorily. We have also received a large number of suggestions from the Indian Financial Code, which are currently being reviewed by the Justice Sri Krishna Committee. I hope sooner than later to introduce the Indian in Parliament for consideration. Madam Speaker, this is just the beginning. I have a vision of putting in place a direct tax regime which is internationally competitive on rates, is without exemptions, incentivizes savings, and does not realize tax from intermediaries. Such a direct regime would be matched by a modernized indirect tax regime we are putting in place by way of GST and will bring both greater transparency and greater investment. Madam Speaker, with regard to the dormant Employees Provident Fund accounts and the claim ratios of the ESI is too well known to be repeated here, it has been remarked that both EPF and ESI have hostages rather than clients. Further, the low-paid worker suffers deductions greater than better-paid workers in percentage terms. With a view to, with respect to Employees Provident Fund, the employee be provided with two options. Firstly, the employee may opt for or for the charities and around them. I propose this year, and I hope this practice continues for next year's onwards also, to start working on these lines and develop with central support the following rights. One, the churches and convents of Old Goa. Two, Hampi, Karnataka. Elephanta Caves in Mumbai. Kumbhalgarh and other city forests of Rajasthan. Rani Ka Vav in Patan in Gujarat. Leh Palace, Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir. The Varanasi Temple Town. The Jallianwala Bagh at Amritsar, and the Qutub Shahi tombs at Hyderabad, Telangana. Wait. After the success
yes.
After the success of the visas on arrival issued to of 43 countries. 43 countries. Madam, last year we announced visas on arrival. 3 countries. The tourism in this country has increased. I propose to increase the countries covered under the scheme to 150 in different stages. Madam, as environment degradation hurts the poor more than others, we are committed to making our development process as green as possible. Our de facto carbon tax on most petroleum products compares favorably with international norms. With regard to coal, there is a need to balance between taxing pollution and the price of power. However, beginning this year, I intend to start on that journey too. The government is launching a scheme for faster adoption and manufacturing electric vehicles. I am proposing an initial outlay of 75 crores in this scheme for 15-16. The Ministry of New Renewable Energy has revised its target of renewable energy to 1,75,000 megawatts in 2022, comprising of 100,000 in solar, 60,000 in wind, 10,000 in biomass and 5,000 of small hydro. Madam Speaker, we are putting the scam, scandal and corruption raj behind us. Malfeasance in public procurement can perhaps be contained by having a procurement law and an institutionalized structure consistent with the UNCITRAL model law. I believe Parliament now needs to take a view on the need to have a procurement law, and if so, in what shape it should take. On the other hand, disputes arising out of public contracts take a long time to resolve and the process is very costly. इसकी वजह से projects अटके रहते हैं. My government proposes to introduce a public contracts resolution of disputes bill to streamline the institutional arrangement of such disputes, institutional arrangement for resolution of such disputes. There is also a need, I feel, to tackle the lack of common approach and philosophy in regulatory arrangements prevailing even within the different sectors of infrastructure. Our government therefore proposes to introduce a regulatory reform law and will bring about a category cogency of approach across various sectors of infrastructure. India is one of the youngest nations of the world with more than 54% of the total population below 25 years of age. Our young people have to be both and employable for the jobs of the 21st century. The Prime Minister has explained on how Skill India needs to be closely coordinated with Make in India. Yet today, less than 5% of our workforce gets formal skill training to be employable and stay employable. We will soon be launching a national skills mission through Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Ministry. The mission will consolidate skill initiatives spread across several ministries and allow us to standardize procedures and outcomes of our 31 sectors skill councils. With rural population still forming close to 70% of India's population, enhancing employability of rural youth is the key or to unlocking India's demographic dividend. With this in mind, we have launched the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kushal Yojana. Rupees 1,500 crores has been set apart for this scheme. Disbursement will be through a digital voucher directly into qualified student bank account. This year, when we will be entering the 100th birth anniversary of Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, the intention of the government is to celebrate the anniversary of the great nationalist in a befitting manner. A 100th birthday celebration committee will be announced soon and adequate resources provided for the same. With a view to enable all poor and middle class students to pursue higher education in their choice without constraint of funds, I propose to set up a fully IT-based student financial aid authority to administer and monitor scholarship, as also the educational loan scheme through the Pradhan Mantri Vidya Lakshmi Karyakram. We will ensure that no student misses out on higher education for lack of funds. Honorable members will remember that in the budget speech of July, I had indicated my intention to provide one major central institution to each state. मैडम इसमें कोई रह जाए तो साल के दौरान बजट के बाद भी हम लोग कंसिडर कर लेंगे. In this fiscal, I propose to set up an All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Jammu, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh and Assam. Keeping in view the need for medical services in Bihar, jahan already AIIMS hai, I propose to set up another AIIMS-like institution in that state. I propose to set up an IIT in Karnataka, upgrade the Indian School of Mines Dhanbad to a full IIT. I propose to set up a postgraduate institute of horticulture research in Amritsar. IIMs will be set up in Jammu and Pradesh. In Kerala, I propose to upgrade the existing National Institute of Speech and Hearing into a University of Disability Studies and Rehabilitation. I am also proposing 3 new national institutes of pharmaceutical education and research in Maharashtra, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, and institutions of science and educational research in Nagaland and Odisha. I am also proposing for Northeast to set up a center for film production, animation and gaming in Arunachal Pradesh, this training institute for women in Uttarakhand. In order to improve the governance of public sector banks, the government intends to announce an autonomous bank board bureau. The bureau will search and select heads of public sector banks and help them in developing differentiated strategies of capital raising plans through innovative financial methods and instruments. This would be an interim step toward establishing a holding and an investment company for banks. Madam, I would like to inform the House that we are making good progress on digital India. The National Optical Fiber Network of 7.5 lakh kilometers, networking 2.5 lakh villages, is being further speeded up by allowing willing states to undertake its execution on reimbursement of cost as determined by the Department of Telecommunication. Andhra Pradesh is the first state to have opted for this manner of implementation. As members are aware, in making a recommendation, the Finance has not distinguished between special category and other states. Moreover, both Bihar and West Bengal are going to be amongst the biggest beneficiaries of the recommendations of the Finance Commission. Yet, eastern states have to be given an opportunity to grow faster. This is what the Prime Minister reiterated even yesterday, an extra boost. I therefore propose to give similar special assistance to Bihar and West Bengal as has been provided in the case by the Government of India, as has been provided in the case of Andhra Pradesh. As regards Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the government is committed to comply with all legal commitments to these states at the time of. In spite of large devolution of states to the states, which implies reduced fiscal space in the same proportion, we are committed to the welfare of the poor and neo-middle class. Keeping this in mind, adequate provision is being made for schemes for the poor and disadvantaged. Illustratively, I have allocated 68 crores to the educational sector, including 33,052 to the health sector, 79,526 crores to the rural development activities, including Manrega, 22,407 for housing and urban development, 10,351 for women and child development, 4,173 for water resources and Nemami Gange. The significant sums will be spent by the states on these programs will be ensure that the quantum of leap in expenditure in these areas. I urge the states to utilize their enhanced resources effectively in these areas. Madam Speaker, I am delighted to report a good progress of DMIC corridor on the Ahmedabad-Durera investment region in Gujarat and the Shendra Bidkin Industrial Park near Aurangabad. In Maharashtra, are now in a position to start work on basic infrastructure. In the current year, I have earmarked an initial sum of rupees 1,200 crores. However, the expenditure picks up, I will provide additional funds. Defense of each square inch of our motherland comes before anything else. So far as we have been dependent on imports with attendant unwelcome spin-offs, our government has already permitted FDI in defense. Controlled entities also become manufacturers of defense equipment, not only for us but for export. We are thus pursuing the Make in India policy to achieve greater self-sufficiency in the area of defense equipment, including aircraft. Members of this august House would have noted that we have been both transparent and defense equipment related purchase decisions this year, keeping our defense forces ready for any eventuality. This year I have provided adequately for the needs of the armed forces. As against the expenditure of the current year at 2,22,370 crores, the budget allocation for 15-16 is 2,0727 crores. While India produces some of the finest minds, including international finance, they have very few avenues in India to fully exhibit and exploit their strength to the country's advantage. GIFT in Gujarat was envisaged as international finance that would actually become as good an international center as Singapore or Dubai, which incidentally are largely manned by Indians. The proposal has languished for years. I am glad to announce that the first phase of GIFT will now become a reality. Appropriate regulations will be issued in the month of March. For the resolution of commercial disputes, the government proposes to set up exclusive commercial divisions in various high courts in India based on the recommendations of the 253rd report of the Law Commission. The government proposes to introduce a bill in Parliament after consulting stakeholders. Madam Speaker, the government will, during the course of this session, also place before the Parliament required bills to convert ordinances issued by the government into acts of Parliament. I will now turn to the budget estimates for the year 15-16. Non-planned expenditure estimates for the year are estimated at 13,12,200 crores. Planned expenditure is estimated at 4,65,277 crore, which will be near to the RE of 2014-15. Total expenditure has been estimated at 17,77,477 crores. The requirements of expenditure on defense, internal security and other necessities are being provided. Gross tax estimated at 14,49,490 crores. Devolution to the states is estimated to be at 5,23,958 crores. Share of the central government will be 9,19,842 crores. Non-tax revenues for the next fiscal are estimated to be 2,21,733 crores. With the above, the fiscal deficit will be 3.9% of GDP and revenue deficit will be 8% of GDP. Madam Speaker, I now turn to my tax proposals. Taxation is an instrument of social economic engineering. Tax collections help the government to provide education, healthcare, housing and other basic facilities to the people to improve their quality of life and to address the problems of poverty, unemployment and slow development. To achieve these objectives, it is our endeavor in the last 9 months to foster a stable taxation policy, a non-adversarial tax administration. A very important dimension to our tax administration is the fight against the scourge of black money. A number of measures have already been taken in this direction. I propose to do much more. We need to revive growth and investment to ensure that more jobs are created for our youth and benefits of development reach millions of our people. We need to enable tax policy for this. I have already introduced a bill to amend the Constitution for goods and services tax in the last session of this August House. GST is expected to play a transformative role in the way of our economy functions. It will add buoyancy to our economy by developing a common Indian market and reducing the cascading effect of the cost of goods and services. We are moving on various fronts to implement GST from next year. We need to match this transformative piece of legislation in indirect taxation, transformative measures in direct taxation. The basic rate of corporate tax in India is 30%. It is higher than the rates prevalent in other major Asian countries, making our industry, domestic industry, uncompetitive. More effective collection of corporate tax is 83%. We lose out on both counts. We are considered as having a high corporate tax regime, but we do not get that tax due to excessive exemptions. A regime of exemptions has led to pressure groups, litigations, and loss of revenue. It has also given room for avoidable discretion. I therefore propose to reduce the rate of corporate tax for 30% to 25% over the next 4 years. This will lead to higher level of investment, higher level of growth, more jobs. This process of reduction has to be necessarily accompanied by rationalization and removal of various kinds of exemptions and incentives for corporate taxpayers which account for a large number of tax disputes. I wanted to start the phased reduction of corporate tax and the phased elimination of exemptions right away. But I thought it would be appropriate to give advance notice of these changes, which will start from next financial year onwards. Our stated policy is to avoid surprises and instability in tax policy. Exemption to individual tax will, however, continue since they facilitate savings and get transferred to investment and growth. While finalizing my tax proposals, I have adopted themes which include measures to curb black money, job creation through revival of growth and investment and promotion of domestic manufacturing and Make in India, minimum government and maximum governance to improve the case of doing business, benefits to middle-class taxpayers, improving the quality of life and robust health through Swachh Bharat initiatives, standalone proposals to maximize benefits to the economy. Madam Speaker, the first and foremost pillar of my tax to effectively deal with the problem of black money, which eats into the vitals of our economy and society. The problem of poverty and inequity cannot be eliminated unless generation of black money and its concealment is dealt with effectively and forcefully. In the last 9 months, several measures have been initiated in this direction. A major breakthrough was achieved in October 2014 when a delegation of the Revenue Department visited Switzerland and Swiss authorities agreed to provide information in respect of cases independently investigated by Income Tax Department, confirm the genuineness of bank accounts and provide non-banking information, provide such information in a time-bound manner, commence talks with India for automatic exchange of information between the two countries at its earliest. Investigation into cases of undisclosed foreign assets has been accorded the highest priority, resulting in detection of substantial amounts of unreported income. For strengthening collection of information from various sources domestically, a new structure is being put in place which includes electronic filing of statements by reporting entities. This will ensure seamless integration of data and more effective enforcement. Tracking down black money and bringing wealth back to wealth which legitimately belongs to this country is our abiding commitment. Recognizing the limitations under existing legislation, we have taken a considered decision to enact a comprehensive new law on black money to deal with monies which are stashed abroad. To this intent, I propose to introduce the bill in the current session of Parliament. With your permission, Madam Speaker, I would like to give some highlights and key features of the proposed bill. Concealment of income and asset and evasion of tax in relation to a foreign asset will be prosecutable with punishment of rigorous imprisonment up to 10 years. This offence will be made non-compoundable. The offender will not be permitted to approach the Settlement Commission. Penalty for such concealment of income and assets will be at the rate of 300% of the tax shall be levied. Non-filing of return or filing of return with inadequate disclosures of foreign asset will be liable for prosecution and punishment of rigorous imprisonment up to 7 years. Income in relation to undisclosed foreign asset or undisclosed income from any asset will be taxable at the maximum marginal rate. Exemption or deduction which may otherwise be applicable in such cases shall not be allowed. Beneficial owner or beneficiary of foreign asset will be mandatorily required to file a return even if there is no taxable income. Abettors of such offences, whether individuals, entities, banks or financial institutions, will be liable for prosecution and penalty. Date of opening of foreign account would mandatorily be required to be specified by the assessee in the return of income. The offence of concealment of income, of evasion of tax in relation to foreign asset will be made a predicate offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. This provision enforcement agencies to attach and confiscate unaccounted assets held abroad and launch prosecution indulging in laundering of black money. The definition of proceeds of crime under PMLA is being amended to enable attachment and confiscation of asset in India where the asset located abroad cannot be forfeited. The Foreign Exchange Management Act is being amended to the effect that if any foreign exchange, foreign security property situated outside India is held in contravention of the provisions of the Act, then action can be taken for seizure and eventual confiscation of assets of equivalent in India. These contraventions are also being made liable for levy of penalty and prosecution with a imprisonment up to 5 years. With regard to curbing domestic black money, a new and more comprehensive bill, Benami Transaction Prohibition Bill, will be introduced in the current session of Parliament. The law will enable the confiscation of Benami property and provide for prosecution, thus blocking a major avenue for generation and holding of black money in the form of Benami property, especially in real estate. A few other measures are being proposed for curbing of black money. The Finance Bill includes a proposal to amend the Income Tax Act to prohibit acceptance of an amount of advance of rupees 20,000 or more in cash for purchase of immovable property. Quoting of the PAN number is being made mandatory for purchase of any sale exceeding a value of rupees 1 lakh. The third parties reporting entities would be required to furnish information on currency sales, cross-border transactions. Provisions are also being made to tackle splitting of reportable transactions. To improve enforcement, CBDT and CBEC will leverage technology and have access to information in each other's database. Madam Speaker, the second pillar of my taxation proposal this year is job creation through revival of growth and investment and domestic manufacturing and Make in India. I propose to undertake steps in this direction to attract capital both domestic and foreign. Tax pass-through is proposed to be allowed in Category 1 and Category 2. alternative investment funds so that tax can be levied on the investors in these funds and not on the fund per se. This will step up the ability of these funds to higher resources and make higher investments in small and medium enterprises, infrastructure and social projects, and provide the much required private equity to the new venture of startups. A step was budget to encourage the real estate investment trust and the infrastructure investment trust by providing partial pass-through to them. These collective investment vehicles have an important role to revive construction activity. A large quantum of funds are unlocked in various completed projects which need to be released to facilities, new infrastructure projects to take off. I therefore propose to rationalize the capital gains regime for the sponsors existing at the time of listing of the units of REITs and InvITs subject to the payment of security transaction tax. The rental income from REITs from their own assets will have a pass-through facility. The present taxation structure has incentive for fund managers to operate from offshore locations. To encourage such offshore fund managers to relocate back to India, I propose to modify the permanent establishment norms to the effect that mere presence of a fund manager in India would not constitute a permanent establishment of the offshore fund, resulting in adverse tax consequences. Implementation of general anti-avoidance rule has been a matter of public debate. The investment sentiment in the country has now turned positive, and we need to accelerate this momentum. There are also certain contentious issues relating to GAR which we need to resolve. It has therefore been decided to defer the applicability of GAR by 2 years. Further, it has also been decided, when implemented, that GAR would apply prospectively to investments made on or after 1/4/2017. Today, I see a lot of young entrepreneurs running businesses, ventures, and wanting to start new ones. They need latest technology. Therefore, to facilitate technology inflow into the businesses at low cost, I propose to reduce the rate of income tax on royalty fees, technical services from 25% to 10%. To generate employment opportunities, it is proposed to extend the benefit of deduction of employment of new regular workmen to all business entities. The eligibility threshold of minimum 100 workmen is being reduced to 50. The role of taxes has also been very important in the context of promotion of domestic manufacturing and make in India. In indirect taxes, therefore, I propose to reduce the rate of basic custom duty on certain inputs, raw material, intermediates, and components in all 22 items so as to minimize the duty inversion and reduce manufacturing costs in several sectors. Some of these changes will address the problem of Senvet credit accumulation due to the levy of SAD. To fully exempt all goods except manipulated printed circuit boards for the use in manufacturing of the ITA bound items from SAD, and reduce the SAD on imports of certain other inputs of raw materials subject to the actual user condition. These changes are detailed in an annexure to my budget speech. My next proposal is regarding minimum government and maximum governance, with focus on the ease of doing business and simplification of tax procedures without compromising on tax revenues. The total wealth tax collection in the country is 1,008 crores in 13-14. Should a tax which leads to high cost of collection and low cost and low yield be continued, or should it be replaced with a low cost, higher yield tax? The rich and wealthy must pay more tax than the less affluent ones. I have therefore decided to abolish wealth tax and replace it with an additional 2% surcharge on the super rich with a taxable income of over rupees 1 crore. This will lead to tax simplification and enable the department to focus on ensuring compliance and widening of the tax base. As against a tax sacrifice of 1,008 crores, through this measure, the department would be collecting an additional rupees 9,000 crores on the 2% additional surcharge. Further, to track wealth held by individuals and entities, the information regarding assets which are currently required to be furnished in the wealth tax return will be captured in the income tax return. This will ensure the abolition of wealth tax does not lead to escape from the tax net. The provisions relating to indirect transfers of income tax, which is a legacy from the previous government, contains several ambiguities. This provision is being suitably cleaned up. Further concerns regarding applicability of indirect transfers, provisions paid by foreign companies to their stakeholders will be addressed by the CBDT through a clarificatory circular. These changes would eliminate the scope for discretionary exercise of power, provide a hassle-free structure to the taxpayers. I reiterate what I have said in the last budget, that ordinarily retrospective tax provisions add impact on stability and predictability of the taxation regime, and resort to such provisions shall be avoided. Further, to reduce associated hassles to smaller taxpayers and compliance of cost in domestic transfer pricing, I propose to increase the threshold limit from rupees 5 crores to 20 crores. In order to rationalize the MAT provisions for FIIs, profits corresponding to their income from capital gains on transactions in securities which are liable to tax at a lower rate shall not be subject to MAT. The Tax Administration Reforms Commission has given a number of recommendations to improve administration in tax department. These recommendations are in the of examination and will appropriately be implemented during the course of the year. As a part of the GST, I had proposed to subsume educational cess and the secondary and higher educational cess in the central excise duty. In effect, the general rate of central excise duty of 12.36%, including cess, is now being rounded off to 12.5%. I propose to revise the specific rate of central excise duty in certain other commodities as detailed in the annexure. However, in the case of petrol and diesel, such specific rates are being revised only to the extent of subsuming the quantum of educational cess presently levied on them, keeping the total incidence of excise duties unchanged. The ad valorem rate of excise duties lower than 12% and those higher than 12%, with a few exceptions, are not being increased. Some changes made to the excise levy on cigarettes and compounded levy scheme to pan masala, gutka and certain other tobacco items. To give a boost to domestic leather footwear industry, the excise duty on footwear where leather uppers and price of more than 1,000 per pair is being reduced to further facilitate the ease of doing business. Online excise and service tax registrations will be done in 2 working days. The assessees under the taxes will be allowed to issue digitally signed invoices and maintain electronic records. These measures will cut down a lot of paperwork, red tape, time limit for taking SENVAT credit into inputs and input services are being increased from 6% to 1 year as a measure of business facilitation. Introduction of GST is clearly awaited by trade and industry. To facilitate smooth transition of levy of tax on services by both center and states, it is proposed to increase the present rate of service tax plus education test from 12.36 to a consolidated rate of 14%. Madam Speaker, cleanliness of households and cleanliness environment are very important social causes. The 4th pillar of my taxation proposal this year therefore relates to initiatives for the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. In my direct tax proposals, I have proposed a 100% deduction for contributions other than by way of CSR contributions to the Swachh Bharat Kosh. A similar tax treatment is also being proposed for the Clean Ganga Fund. In indirect taxes, I propose to increase the clean energy cess from 100 to rupees 200 per metric ton of coal to finance the clean environment initiatives. Excise duty on sacks of bags of polymer of ethylene other than those for industrial increased from 12 to 15%. It is proposed to have an enabling provision to levy Bharat says at a rate of 2% or less on all services if the need arises. This cess will be effective from a date to be notified. Resources generated from this cess will be used for financing and promoting initiatives towards Swachh Bharat. It is also proposed to exempt services of common affluent treatment tax. The concessions from customs and excise duty currently available on specified parts of manufacturing of electrical operated hybrid vehicles are being extended for one more year up to 31/3/16. Madam, the fifth pillar of my taxation proposal this year is extension of benefits to the middle class taxpayers. These proposals in this regard are the following. Increase in limit of deduction of health insurance premium from 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. Madam, this is being done to encourage people to take health insurance of our social security program. It will also enable a tax rebate. For senior citizens, this limit will be increased to 30,000 from the existing 10,000. For very senior citizens of the age of 80 years or above who are not covered by health insurance, deduction of rupees 30,000 towards expenditure incurred on their treatment will be allowed. हर वरिष्ठ नागरिक को 30,000 रुपए का सालाना डिडक्शन मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट का मिलेगा. The deduction limit of 60,000 towards expenditure on account of specified diseases of serious nature is proposed to be enhanced to 80,000 in the case of additional deduction of 25,000 will be allowed for differently abled persons under Section 80DD and Section 80U of the Income Tax Act. The limit of deduction on account of contribution to a pension fund and the new pension scheme is proposed to be increased from rupees 1 lakh to 1,50,000 each year. The next proposal, madam, is important. To provide social safety net, the facility of pension to individuals, an additional deduction of rupees 50,000 is proposed to be provided for contribution to the new pension scheme under 80CCD. This will enable India to become a pensioned society instead of a pensionless society. तो अपने जीवन के अर्निंग काल में जो भी पेंशन फंड को 50,000 रुपए तक देगा सालाना, उसको टैक्स की उस वर्ष की छूट मिलेगी ताकि ये आगे जाके वरिष्ठ आयु में उसकी पेंशन बन सके. Investments in the Sukanya Smriddhi scheme, which was recently launched by the Prime Minister, is already eligible for deduction under 80C. All payments made for the beneficiaries, that is the girl child, including interest payment on deposits, will be fully exempted from tax. Transport allowance, which is allowed to all taxpayers and is currently at rupees 8. Transport allowance exemption is being increased from rupees 800 to rupees 1600 per month. For the benefit of senior citizens, service tax exemption will be provided on the Varisht Bima Yojana. Madam Speaker, I am giving these concessions to individual taxpayers despite inadequate fiscal space, after taking into account the tax concessions given to the middle class payers in my last budget and in the present one, including the earlier concessions. An individual taxpayer can now get a benefit up to rupees 4,44,200 as detailed next year. As and when my fiscal capacity improves, individual taxpayers will have a lot to look forward to. Madam Speaker, there are several standalone proposals relating to taxation. These include conversion of existing excise duty on petrol and diesel to the extent of rupees 4 per litre to road cess to fund investment in roads and other infrastructure. ये जो विषय उठे यहाँ पर कि दुनिया में तेल की कीमत में कमी हुई है, जो उपभोक्ता को भी दिया है, उसमें से कुछ लाभ हाईवे कंस्ट्रक्शंस के लिए और रेलवेज के लिए भी उसका प्रयोग होगा. An additional 40,000 will be made available through this measure to these sectors. In service tax, exemption is being extended to certain pre-cold storage services in relation to fruits so as to incentivize value addition in the crucial sector. The negative list under the service tax is being slightly pruned and certain other exemptions are being withdrawn to widen the tax base. Yoga is India's well-acknowledged gift to the world. It is proposed to include yoga within the ambit of charitable purposes of Section 215 of the Income Tax Act. Further, to mitigate problems faced by many genuine charitable organizations, it is proposed to modify ceiling on receipts from activities in the nature of trade, commerce, business to 20% of the total receipts from existing ceiling of 25 lakhs. A national database on the non-profit organizations is being developed. Enactment of the direct tax code has been under discussion for quite some time. Provisions of the direct tax code have been included in the Income Tax Act. Amongst the very few aspects of the DTC which were left out, we had addressed some issues in the present budget. Further jurisprudence on income tax is well evolved. Considering these aspects, there is no great merit in going ahead with the direct tax code as it exists today. Madam, the detailed direct and indirect proposals are given in the annexure to the budget speech and the other budget documents which are being laid on the table of the House. My direct tax proposals would lead to a loss of revenue of rupees 8,315 crore, whereas my proposal in indirect will yield rupees 23,383 crores. The net impact of my all tax proposals would be a revenue gain of 15,068. To conclude, Madam, it is no secret that expectations from this budget have been high. People who urge us to undertake big bang reforms also say that the Indian economy is a supergiant which moves slowly but surely. Even our admit that we have moved rapidly. In this speech, I have clearly outlined not only what we are going to do immediately, but also a roadmap for the future. I think I can genuinely stake for our government a claim of honesty. We have been consistent in what we have said and what we are doing. We are committed, Madam Speaker, to achieving what we have been voted to power for. Change, growth, jobs, and genuine effective upliftment of the poor and underprivileged. Our commitment to the Daridra Narayan is steadfast, and is our commitment to constitutional principles of equality and justice for all without concern of caste, creed and religion. This is in the spirit of the Upanishads inspired mantra, Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Chantu, Ma Kashit Dukh Bhag Bhavet. With these words, Madam, I commend the budget to this Honorable House.
Fiscal responsibility.
I wish to present a statement of the estimated receipts and expenditure of the Government of India for the year 2015-16.
Now to move for leave to introduce the final.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House the following statements under Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003. 1. Macroeconomic Framework Statement. 2. Medium-term Fiscal Policy Statement. And 3. Fiscal Policy Strategy Statement.
Yes. Now to move for leave to introduce the finance bill, please. Sri Jetli, move to introduce the finance bill.
Madam, I move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2015.
Yes. The question is that leave be granted to introduce the finance bill 2015. Those in favor may say aye. Those against may say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The leave is granted. The minister may now introduce.
Madam, I introduce the bill.
Yes. Members, one observation. Many members have demanded that the sitting fixed on Thursday, the 5th March, be cancelled on account of Holi. सबने निवेदन किया था कि 5 तारीख नहीं हो. आप सबका निवेदन स्वीकृत करते हुए मैं अनाउंस कर रही हूँ कि 5 मार्च को जो सिटिंग हाउस का था वो कैंसिल कर दिया जाता है. The House stands adjourned to meet again on Monday, the 2nd March 2015, 11 a.m.
नमस्कार, स्वागत है आपका राज्यसभा टीवी में। आप देख रहे थे यूनियन बजट 2015-16। अभी तक वित्त मंत्री का भाषण आप सुन रहे थे और आज वित्त मंत्री के भाषण में कई नई चीजें भी देखने को मिली। कुछ चीजों को उन्होंने स्थिर रखा है और खास तौर से जो टैक्स पेयर्स हैं, जो रेगुलर टैक्स पेयर्स हैं, उनके लिए खबर ये है कि उनके टैक्स स्लैब में कोई बदलाव नहीं किया गया है। हालांकि कारोबारियों के टैक्स स्लैब में बदलाव की बात 4 साल के भीतर करने को कही गई है। इसके अलावा हमारे साथ कई खास मेहमान हैं और हमारे सहयोगी गिरीश निकम भी।
Okay, welcome to the budget special. Today you just heard it was a 95-minute speech which the finance minister made today. A longer one than last year. Last year, if you remember, he made his first speech. He had some trouble, but this time he was able to complete that 95-minute speech standing, and it was quite a very interesting speech. I'm sure my guests here in the panel here and outside will be able to analyze it better. But on the face of it, the finance minister seems to be walking some of the talk which he and his government seem to have made in the last 1 year since the election campaign started. So we have with us right in the studio SP Singh of Deloitte and NR Bhanumurthy, member of the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. Welcome to both of you. Bhanumurthy, your first responses?
Yeah, I think the government has really tried to target growth. It's a major focus of this budget, and at the same time they would like to see the more jobs opportunities being created. This is very consistent with what we have seen in the economic survey yesterday,
right?
Creating opportunities and reducing vulnerabilities. In that sense, I think they're given more focus on industry, revival of the industrial sector. At the same time, there are some, as we talked in the morning, I think the finance minister tried to postpone the fiscal deficit target for the next couple of years. So that was expected, and that is going to lead to more public capital expenditure, which is going to attract more private investment.
Absolutely. Mr. Singh, yes, sorry. Mr. Singh, I just want one thing which was being looked at by, very anticipated at least by the corporates and industry, these big bang reforms. Do you see any big bang reforms here?
One way you can say that there is big bang reform. Now, reform is not always that you give benefit. Reform is also when you put a mechanism in place, right, which takes care of, plugging the loopholes and creating opportunities for the investors. So in that way, one can say that this is a big bang reform. If you look at the way the ministry is trying to put the mechanism in place to deal with the generation of black money by ensuring that cash transactions.
He has said that he's going to bring a law on this.
And bring a law. So that is one, because that is the source of the generation of black money. If you reduce that, then in that case you deal with it. The second one is that, if somebody is caught with black money, I mean, whether it is kept in India, outside India, then how harsh are you? I mean, when you increase the cost of, misusing
Generating black money and keeping black money.
Exactly. So, yes.
जी, मैंने पूछा कि अगर ये सारे प्रयास वित्त मंत्री की तरफ से किए जा रहे हैं तो क्या हम ये माने कि अर्थव्यवस्था के अच्छे दिन की शुरुआत यहाँ से होगी? बहुत सारे लोग इसको विक्टर ह्यूगो मूवमेंट लाने की एक तरह से तैयारी कह रहे थे, तो क्या हम माने कि कुछ इस तरह की पहल हो पाई है?
जी, जहाँ तक वित्तीय सिस्टम और उसके बाद एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का सवाल है, ये 2 दिन के अंदर में चेंज होने वाला नहीं होता है। लेकिन जो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर एक मैसेज देते हैं वो परकोलेट होता है डाउन टू दी ग्रास लेवल। और इस तरह से यदि हम लोग जो टैक्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को भी इम्प्रूव करने की बात उन्होंने कही, वो एक बहुत पॉजिटिव चीज है, क्योंकि आप रेगुलेशन लाते हैं और साथ ही साथ यदि आप एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को भी उस डायरेक्शन में ले जाते हैं तभी आप उस चीज को अचीव कर सकते हैं।
तो ये जाता हुआ उस डायरेक्शन
में जाता हुआ दिखता है।
लेकिन क्या अगर इंडिविजुअल के लेवल पे हम सोचें तो क्या उसको कोई फायदा मिला, खास तौर से अगर टैक्सेशन का जो प्रोसेस पूरा उन्होंने बताया है, क्योंकि टैक्स स्लैब में जो इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे जो नौकरी पेशा लोग हैं उनके टैक्स स्लैब में ज्यादा परिवर्तन नहीं किया गया है, लेकिन ये भी खबरें हैं कि उन्होंने सर्विस टैक्स बढ़ा दिया, 12% से 14% कर दिया, तो कई सारी चीजें महंगी भी होने की है, यहाँ तक कि हायर एजुकेशन पे भी अब सेस देना होगा और सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन पे भी सेस देना होगा।
देखिए, जो इन्होंने अभी प्रावधान किया है उसमें सारी चीजें तो सामने आई नहीं है। जब फाइन प्रिंट्स आदमी देखेगा तब ज्यादातर बातें पता चलेंगी, लेकिन जैसे कुछ बेनिफिट दिया है उन्होंने, मान लीजिए मेडिकल एक्सपेंसेस के लिए 15,000 था, उसको 25,000 20,000 बना दिया। उस तरह से सीनियर सिटीजन को भी सर्टेन बेनिफिट्स दिए। पीएफ का लिमिट को भी उन्होंने इंक्रीज किया अंडर डिफरेंट सेक्शंस। तो कुछ टिटबिट्स में जो
Mr. Singh, we've just got the budget papers with us. It's talking of benefits to taxpayers. So there's a series of benefits actually in terms of deduction of health insurance premium. It has been raised from 15 to 25,000 rupees. Senior citizens limit increased from 20 to 30,000 rupees.
Additional PF increase.
Additional PF has been increased. Deduction limit as additional deduction of 25,000 rupees allowed for differently abled persons. Limit on deduction on account of contribution to a pension fund increase. Additional deduction. So 4.44 lakhs. That's what the finance minister said will be the benefit totally in terms of deductions. Is that right?
In fact, Girish, if you look at, this is movement towards the international scheme of taxation.
That's what he said. He made that clear also.
Exactly. So what happens, internationally is that there is lesser number of, deductions allowed to the corporate sector with less or the lower tax rate. So that provides them certainty. This is what he has done. When you come to individuals, then in case of individuals, you have to give certain benefits, because each and every individual is not at the same level of economic, well-being, and you have to encourage.
So he has not raised the exemption limit, but he has given certain exemptions which will help the individual taxpayers.
Yes.
Panamurthy?
Yes, I think that's clear. Almost if you compare to the previous existing system, close to 1 lakh rupee exemption limit seems to have gone up.
Right.
If you get into the tax, free bonds,
right,
or the pension schemes or the health insurance, which is very much important for the social security of all the citizens.
Absolutely.
In that sense, my feeling is that this is going to help the common people.
Another important thing which I noticed in his speech, as far as ordinary people are concerned, the kind of stress which they have laid on citizens. A whole lot of schemes have been announced as far as, also talking of a universal social security scheme.
Yes.
Creating some kind of a universal
प्रधानमंत्री बीमा योजना, अटल पेंशन योजना,
all these aimed at senior citizens.
घटना बीमा योजना, इस तरह की कई सारी योजनाओं की बात भी की जो खास तौर से गरीबों के लिए उसमें फोकस ज्यादा दिखा।
देखिए, बहुत बार ऐसा होता है, एक लोगों में एक धारणा होती है क्यों पे करूं, यदि मैं जब मेरी उम्र ज्यादा हो जाए, मैं अर्न नहीं कर रहा हूं, उस समय मुझे कौन देखेगा। एक वो व्यू रहता है, और जिसको टैकल करना बहुत जरूरी है। बहुत सारे जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं आज उसमें लोगों में टैक्स पे करने की ज्यादा इच्छा, बिकॉज दे आर श्योर कि आगे उनका कोई देखने वाला है, गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू लुक आफ्टर। उसी तरह की एक फीलिंग इस तरह से इन्होंने देने की कोशिश की है कि सर्टेन एज के बाद में यदि आप एक बहुत छोटा अमाउंट पे करते हैं और बाद में आपको एक बेनिफिट मिलता है पेंशन के फंड में,
it creates a kind of a positive atmosphere in the country and also a confidence among the senior citizens. We are now joined by Kriti Mishra, our correspondent, who is at the FICCI. Kriti, what is the mood there? How has the industry reacted?
Girish, Budget 2015-16 has received a thumbs up from Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, especially the move to really rationalize and remove a number of exemptions that were given in the corporate tax and reducing it from 30% to 25% in the course of 4 years has really been welcomed by the industry. Even abolishing wealth tax and putting 2% surcharge on super rich, that step has also been welcomed by the industry. And MSMEs, which have been the main in India campaign, establishing Mudra Bank for them has really been applauded by the industry, and also power outage that has crippled industry for a very long time, and establishing really funding 5 mega projects, power projects. The industry is extremely happy about the budget. Back to you, Girish.
Okay, Kriti, stay back, you stay back, we'll come back to you, and if you have any guests, please let us know, we'll come back to you. Till then, we are now joined in by R. Srinivasan, Senior Associate Editor of the Hindu Business Line with us. Srinivasan, how do you look at this budget? What is your first responses to it?
My initial reaction is that it is very much on the lines that the Finance Minister had indicated earlier. It is transformation intent, but it is not a big bang budget in content.
Big bang reforms?
It's, big bang in terms of reform, big bang in terms of SOPs, big bang in terms of populism. It's pretty much a sensible budget. He has been very alive to the constraints that he's facing in terms of the availability of fiscal room. Attention has been to certain critical areas, like infrastructure, and particularly on financing infrastructure projects, the deepening of the, bond market, creating that, new tax-free bonds to finance infrastructure, etc. These are necessary steps which had to be taken. Another pragmatic approach, I would say, is in the kind of template laid out for the ultra mega power projects, a plug and play model.
Right.
If you cannot sort out all the regulatory and clearances issues in one go,
he's saying that,
he's saying, okay, let me take small
plug and play. We need to explain this to our viewers.
Okay, plug and play means
that
a particular project will be presented to a bidder which has got all the necessary clearances in advance, whether it is land, whether it is environment, whether it is regulatory permissions, etc. What the investor then needs to do is to take a look at the financial viability of the project and make a bid accordingly, right? So what the government has done is that if it has not been able to cut through the entire regulatory, tangles surrounding this entire area of infrastructure, it has said, okay, let us sort of at least solve it in small parts. So you need an important project, say a stretch of road connectivity, you do a plug and play model. You need a bridge built, you get the clearances done for that, do the acquisitions for that, get the clearances done for that, and get that infrastructure built. So I think that it displays a lot of pragmatism.
Okay, Bhanumurthy?
Yeah, I think
this plug and play model, he said, if I remember correctly, that in his own office he has created some kind of a infrastructure, 13 different permissions which need to be taken at one go.
Yes. No, I think it's basically part of the overall ease of doing business.
Yes.
I think this is something the corporate sector was looking forward for quite some time. The kind of project that we see in terms of the stalled projects, my guess is that all these, policy that is brought out in the budget today should help reduce the number of days in terms of starting a business, new business.
No, going away from business. See, one of the big things which was being looked after to, a lot of social activists in this country were very about 2-3 very things about the social sector spending. We're still not very clear what is the kind of, we'll have to go through the paper still, but he made it very clear. Yesterday the Prime Minister made a speech in the Parliament, and today the finance about Manrega will not, Manrega is getting additional funding.
Yes.
ICDS is getting additional funding.
No, I don't think it's additional funding. He's saying that depending on the revenue.
Depending on the revenue buoyancy, he has actually, given some kind of a figure to how much more he can
Yeah,
give.
at the moment he's committing for 35,000 crore.
35,000 crores, which I'm sure a lot of activists are expecting a drastic
This is
reduction.
Manrega is mostly a counter-cyclical policy measure, particularly when you are not doing well in the rural segment. Then there will be demand for, it's a demand-driven
thing.
So it doesn't mean that every year it has to go on increasing. When you have a
But
good
there is a
agriculture-
political message there, Mr. Singh.
Yeah, I do agree, but I take point from is in the sense that, if you have alternative for, the people in the rural areas, then the demand for Manrega will go down. So, and Manrega is not a, long-term solution for removing poverty. It's a quick, knee-jerk reaction, I would say. So, yeah, exactly. So
But this year you see the actual expenditure on Manrega will be
लेकिन
much
मनरेगा
lower.
में भी एक कंडीशन और उसके अलावा जो हायर एजुकेशन के बनाए जाने के लिए इंस्टीट्यूशंस बनाए गया है, लेकिन वो भी सरकार के पैसे से होगा या टैक्स पेयर्स के पैसे से होगा, क्योंकि सेस बढ़ा दिया गया है, हायर एजुकेशन के ऊपर भी सेस लगा दिया गया है और सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन पे भी. तो एक जब टैक्स पेयर्स से पैसा मिलेगा तब शायद उधर ज्यादा फंडिंग होगी, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ इतने सारे इंस्टीट्यूट खोलने होंगे तो ये कितना वायबल
देखिए,
होगा?
ये इंस्टीट्यूट एक साल में खुलेंगे, ऐसी बात संभव नहीं है. ये तो एक इंटेंशन गवर्नमेंट का है कि हम इतने इंस्टीट्यूट इस इलाके में इस तरह का खोलेंगे. तो जो उन्होंने कहा अभी कि करीबन 18,000 करोड़ का फायदा होने वाला है, डायरेक्ट टैक्स और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स दोनों को हम लोग जोड़ते हैं. डायरेक्ट टैक्स में इट्स गोइंग डाउन बाय 8,000 करोड़, इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स द गेन विल बी अबाउट 23,000 करोड़.
One second, Mr. Singh. What it says here, please explain this also. Education cess in the secondary and higher education cess to be subsumed in central excise duty. How do you,
So subsumed means, there will be one rate. So you don't have these three, getting into. So suppose, 10% and the cess 1% or 2%, it makes 10.25%.
Right. So additional that
So-
separated, it's not the, is it only an administrative?
It's administrative, and
Convenience के लिए-
convenience and convenience taxpayers also, because
For the government
लेकिन
also,
ये
he
जो-
has a committed expenditure for
Yeah,
education.
लेकिन जो
Committed
सर्विस
expenditure
टैक्स
for the
बढ़ाया है, जो सर्विस टैक्स में 2% का इंक्रीज किया है, उससे बहुत सारे लोग जो खास तौर से शहरी मध्य वर्ग के लोग हैं जो बाहर जाते हैं और रेस्टोरेंट में खाना खाते हैं या फिल्में देखते हैं या क्लब मेंबरशिप को एंजॉय करना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए ये ज्यादा
थोड़ा
महंगाई
सा
हो
उसमें
गई है.
बढ़ेगा. लेकिन जैसे यदि आप मान लीजिए इंडस्ट्री या बिजनेस की दृष्टि से देखना शुरू करते हैं, उस सेट ऑफ ले पाते हैं, तो उनके लिए वो एक्चुअल एडिशन नहीं होता है कॉस्ट का. तो जरूरी नहीं है कि जो बिजनेस है वो आपको टोटल पास ऑन कर दे कस्टमर को. तो वो यदि मान लीजिए उनको सेट ऑफ मिल जाता है तो उसके अनुसार वो इंस्टेड ऑफ पासिंग द एंटायर इंक्रीज ऑफ 2%, दे में पास ऑन ओनली a partial increase. So it will depend upon how. But today, he is talking about the GST going to be introduced.
That is, he has made a commitment now.
Commitment now.
For
April
next-
1, 2016,
for
it is going to
next,
start. It is the
Exactly,
commitment.
yeah.
Exactly.
It is a commitment which you cannot go back on. You think that the corporate, the industry, everybody should be looking forward to this?
I think everybody is. It's a big bang reform. You can
That is
say
a real big bang
it's a
reform.
big bang reform, and he is now committed that GST will be there in 2 year time. Now,
1 year.
1 year.
2016.
Yeah, 1 year time. And if you should appreciate that GST is pretty complex when it comes getting set off being given to various, players, center, the state, and like that. So the machinery has to be in place both at the end
That's
of the
exactly.
government.
Srinivasan, the machinery has to be in place. There's a lot of things which needs to be done. I don't know whether the compensation, the issue of compensation is still, I don't think has resolved, because at least the finance minister's speech in the budget doesn't give us an indication of what kind of compensations they're thinking about. But this commitment to get into the GST regime is a welcome move.
It is absolutely welcome, because the roadmap to GST has been pretty clear for some time now.
Right.
But we were not able to get milestones, clear milestones of when it will actually go into effect. Industry and various other analysts have said repeatedly that, just simply implementing GST will add 1 percentage point to your GDP growth, regardless of which series you're using. So, if you're looking at 8.5%, which is about a 0.5 percentage increase in GDP growth rate, if you push in GST by another year or so, you might add a percentage to that. So that's a significant step. The commitment to doing it a year ahead is important. As for the compensation issue, the Finance Commission has also indicated, and in fact it has indicated a higher level of compensation than what had earlier been proposed by the government.
They are talking of a 5-year.
My sense is that the government may go towards that because it now wants everybody on board. It has got a committed date to implement GST. So it's highly likely that the government veers towards the Finance Commission's recommendations.
One more thing.
One thing which I would like to add here is that when you are talking and the government has proposed that the GST to be brought in, there are two aspects which have to be taken care of. One is that, there are different rates of VAT in various states. They in line because the GST will be one across the country. And service tax is basically, in that direction to have a single rate in respect of VAT as well as the service tax.
इस वक्त रेल मंत्री सुरेश प्रभु बजट पर अपनी बयान दे रहे हैं, चलते हैं वहाँ।
निवेश नहीं हो रहा था, लोगों के जॉब जा रहे थे, इकोनॉमी बहुत ही कठिन परिस्थिति से गुजर रही थी। ऐसे
Well, I think there's some audio problem getting what Suresh Prabhu is saying.
जिसमें निवेश बढ़ने के लिए कदम है, इन्फ्लेशन कम करने के लिए कदम है, आम आदमी के हित के लिए तो 5.5 करीबन 4.5 लाख रुपए अब कॉमन मैन के हाथ में आएगा, जिससे हमारी आज उनकी स्थिति बहुत सुधर जाएगी। पानी के लिए, बिजली के लिए, सड़क के लिए, आम जनता की जो भी चिंता है उसके लिए उन्होंने प्रावधान किए। साथ साथ में हमारी जो प्राथमिक सेवा है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, उसमें निवेश बढ़ाने के लिए जो कदम उठाए गए, मैं मानता हूं बहुत ही क्रांतिकारी है और उसका असर भी होगा। जैसे हमने एक नया कदम उठाया कि हम इन्वेस्टमेंट व्हीकल बनाएंगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड बनाएंगे, जो इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड बहुत सारे विदेश से पैसा आने के बाद इतना विशाल होगा कि जिससे निवेश करने के बाद हमारी देश की सड़कें, हमारे देश के पावर प्लांट, हमारे देश की रेल, हमारे देश के अनेक पायाभूत सेवाओं में बड़े मात्रा में विकास किया जाएगा।
रेल मंत्री का बयान सुन रहे थे, वो कह रहे थे कि बेहतर जिस तरह की हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था की हालत है उस पर बजट पेश किया गया है। इस समय नितिन गडकरी ट्रांसपोर्ट मिनिस्टर भी बयान दे रहे हैं, चलते हैं।
Giving highest priority to the infrastructure. Our country needs good infrastructure, and investment in infrastructure increases more employment potential. And for the ports, for the roads, and for the finance minister give additional budget for us, and this is a great thing for us. And I am confident by using this, we can be succeed to give a good infrastructure to the country.
So, but do you feel that there is enough for the common man in this budget as well? Because the opposition seems to be taking.
As far as the opposition party is concerned, I don't want to make any comments on it because it is expected from them. But as far as a third point of view, the first time in the history of the country, infrastructure is very important for the country: water, power, transport, and communication. As for the declaration of the 4 mega project, that will reduce the power cost, because you know that in a mega project the power cost is 1 rupees 20 paisa per unit at the pit. So I feel that for the road sector, the power sector, the shipping, the ports, and particularly he is also taking a lot of care about the rural sector and giving the priority to the Narega. He increased the fund and Manrega, and at the same time he also give the priority to the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. So these are very much important thing as far as the rural infrastructure is concerned. Thank you, sir. It's a good point.
और इस वक्त हम चलते हैं फिक्की, हमारी संवाददाता कृति मिश्रा वहां पर मौजूद है और उनके साथ हैं एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर जुबिलेंट लाइफ के कृति। क्या किस तरह के रिएक्शन मिल रहे हैं वहां पर मेहमानों की तरफ से आपको आज के बजट को लेकर? क्या कह रहे हैं?
Right, Amrita. I am joined by Mr. Shyam Bang, who's Executive Director of Jubilant Life Sciences. So, welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. It was a budget of great expectations, budget of great delivery too.
I think Finance Minister has addressed, if you look at the macroeconomical kind of a system and situation in India today, he has tried to make it more inclusive and beneficial for the general masses of the country. He has empowered the states by allocating more revenues, more resources to the states. Even in the 2 days back, the way the finance report, the survey has allocated. Even in the coal auction blocks, more resources have been allocated to the states for the development. So probably making the states more responsible and making them more resourceful. When it comes to like inclusive growth, he has made provisions for everybody, including minorities, including students, including even like the Parsi community, allocation for every kind of, for women. He has increased the allocation of Manrega. So much of allocation has been made, a huge boost in the infrastructure that he's talking about, the construction of roads, the railways. And then indirectly, all these allocations will have benefit to the industry as well. If there is more construction, obviously you need all those construction goods, you need more steel, you need more cement, you need all construction materials, more employment for people. So in general, it leads to the economical growth in the country. So obviously there are some small things which might cause disappointment to the industry as such, but otherwise the budget has been, I think, very, very useful coming to the expectations of people.
Right, sir. You talked about disappointments. Disappointments are you talking of?
Okay, I'll come to the disappointment a little later, but the beneficial things that have come to the industry is the removal of SAD, the auxiliary duty at on the import of goods, which was a pain point for the industry for a long time, which was getting additional burden on the products, which has been removed, which is very good. He has reduced the basic customs duty on some of the imported items which are not available in the country, and which was increasing the cost of the products being made in the country and making that manufacturing not very competitive in the country. That will help the manufacturing industry. The excise duty has not been touched so much, barring a small little education cess increase, so that stays very well. The only pain point is the service tax, which has been increased from 12% to 14%, which certainly will cause discomfort to some of the industry. Otherwise, barring that, there is an incentive for making electrical vehicles in the country, which is very good. There is an incentive for, there is an investment allocation for non-conventional energy like the solar and wind energy and those kinds of things. So that will boost some investment in that direction. There is allocation for medical aids for senior citizens or super senior citizens, where the government is going to spend money. So of those goods will improve. The manufacturing of leather goods should improve with the reduction in the on the leather goods. So those are some of the good things happening. So barring that service tax, I think everything else is good for the industry.
Right. So a lot of positive things are there, positive reception by the industry. Budget 2015-16. Back to the studio now.
Okay, now we will go to the parliament where my colleague Vishal Daya is there with some of the MPs and politicians, MPs and others there. Vishal, whom do you have with you?
Well, Girish, political reactions have started coming in. It has been just a short while since the budget speech has come to an end. And the initial reactions which are coming in from the opposition parties, specifically Congress, is criticizing the budget outrightly. The Congress leaders are saying that this seems to be a corporate-friendly budget. This seems to be a budget which only talks about commissions, committees, and promises for the future, but no roadmap for the current financial year, that's 2015-16, 2015-16, no concrete benefits which could be, given, which could be taken from this particular budget to the common man. So, in essentiality, the criticism from the opposition has started trickling in, and within next few hours or so, we will have, finer details when there will be detailed press conferences by these political parties.
विशाल, आपके पास हम लौटेंगे। आपने कहा कि जो विपक्ष है उसका ये आरोप है कि कमीशन कमेटी एंड प्रॉमिसेस वाला बजट ज्यादा देखने को मिल रहा है, और ये भी आप कह रहे हैं कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर को फायदा पहुंचाने वाला बजट मालूम पड़ता है विपक्ष का। मैं आर श्रीनिवासन जी आपसे जानना चाहती हूं, बार बार ये कहा जा रहा था कि सरकार को इन्वेस्टमेंट पर ध्यान देना चाहिए और खास तौर से इंडस्ट्री को कैसे बढ़ावा मिले इस पर ही ध्यान देना चाहिए, माइक्रो लेवल पे नहीं बल्कि मैक्रो लेवल पर उसको सोचना है कि कैसे मैक्रो लेवल पे इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ाए ताकि जो इंडस्ट्री है उसको बूस्ट मिले और इसके बाद हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था को गति मिल सके। क्या जिस तरह से कोशिश की गई है वो वाकई कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर को ज्यादा फेवर करती हुई नहीं दिख रही है? ये
नहीं, ऐसा तो नहीं कह सकते। कई सारे मतलब इनिशिएटिव्स माइक्रो एंड स्मॉल एंड मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस के लिए तो कई सारे इनिशिएटिव। मुझे तो ये भी बहुत पॉजिटिव लगा कि वो जो 1000 करोड़ दिए गए हैं सेटू के लिए, और एक इनोवेशन फंड सेटअप किया गया है, इंक्यूबेशन फैसिलिटी सेटअप किया है टू प्रमोट एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप। तो मेरे ख्याल में आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि केवल बिग बिजनेस के लिए ये बजट है। मेरे ख्याल में स्मॉल बिजनेसेस, माइक्रो एंटरप्राइजेस, स्टार्टअप्स, उनके लिए काफी फर्क पड़ेगा। एक सिग्निफिकेंट डिटेल है ये ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ ऑल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड। ऑल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड हम और आप वेंचर कैपिटल के नाम से जानते हैं। ये जो इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड्स हैं जो दे फाइनेंस स्टार्टअप, वेंचर फंडिंग देते हैं, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रोल है ऐसी फंड्स की एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप डेवलप करने में। और उनकी कुछ मतलब टैक्स इश्यूज थे जो इस बजट में सॉर्ट आउट कर दिए गए हैं, और मेरे ख्याल में वेंचर फंडिंग के लिए काफी अच्छा बूस्ट दिया गया है।
Srinivasan, we'll come back to you on this, but we have our colleague Rajkamal at the CII. Rajkamal, I would like you to ask the people at the CII, as far as investments are concerned, one of the biggest complaints of the industry, the corporates, were that there's not been much incentives for them to invest in the country. You please find out if they think that after this budget, the private sector, the corporates will be able to invest more in this country.
Okay, Girish, I'll take that question to Deepak Puri. He's CMD Mozaber. Mr. Deepak, today's budget, do you think the finance minister has been giving signals? Has he been able to give signals for the private sector to invest more in this country? Because that has been a bone of contention in last one and a half year. Do you think the budget, using the budget, finance minister has given you those signals?
Absolutely. Let me just try and cover one of the sectors which I wanted to talk about. Is the world's single largest manufacturing sector. All the tiger economies you talk about, South Korea, Taiwan, China, these economies have taken off on the basis of A, manufacturing, and B, always on electronics. Electronics is the largest single manufacturing sector in the world. Now let's switch on to a subsector of electronics. Ministers harped on it, is called renewable energy. Renewable energy, solar, is a semiconductor in itself. Semiconductor fabs are expensive. He has addressed all the issues concerning the solar sector, and he has highlighted, which you may be able to hear if you hear carefully, highlighted off-grid solar power. Please remember one thing, important factor. Today, you can't set up, if you have a thermal power station and you have to take it to the villages, you have to have transmission stations, very expensive deliveries. If you have it right on to the village, you provide off-grid solar power, and that is 24 hours if you've got storage batteries in there.
So, Deepak, I just want to give us the industry point of view. How did the ease of doing business a lead from today's budget? Has Finance Minister been able to give you those indications? The corporate tax has been reduced to 25%. It was earlier 30%, and there are several incentives, especially in public-private partnership and infrastructure sector. Do you think this kind of budget will help the industry to invest and give boost economy, especially to generate jobs? Growth without job generation may not be helpful for the country. So how does industry partner with government with kind of incentives announced today?
Your question is very interesting, and I agree with that absolutely. Growth without jobs is nothing at all. The finance minister has addressed this straight away on the issues that, look, jobs will be created by creating ease of business. He did not spell out, he has mentioned ease of doing business. He did not spell out exactly the nuances of what he is going to do, but this will come out 100% subsequently as he eases business through. And the way to do it is that if I come to India as a foreigner, where do I go if I want to set up a plant? What to do, what are my permissions required, how quickly can I get it? I am 100% certain we at CII, and we have talked to the finance minister on this, and they said a single window clearance for every sector. That's what we have requested, and I think this government is very receptive to moving forward on that basis.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak. Rajkamal, the industry has been participating from Finance Minister's budget.
Thank you, Rajkamal. Thanks for joining with us. Mr. Singh, the question was till yesterday, it was discussed, about the public investments in infrastructure. You think that, going by speech, there seems to be a lot of focus on that, because it's very clear that the economic survey also spoke about, though private investments which should be the engine of growth. As of now, public investment is the engine of growth. So you see that.
Girish, I mean, there cannot be one sector investing, either public or private. Because when we look at, the private investment, it again, whether it's the domestic investment or it's foreign investment. So if the foreign investment has to come to India, then in that case, the benefits have to be. Now, one step is that, if somebody wants to invest in infrastructure, whether it is power or road or like that, how many types of the, the clearances that person has to get. There may be, very large.
You're talking of the private sector.
Of the private sector. When we talk about the public sector investing in this, then even that, the return which will be coming out of that, how to ensure, because it will be either on the basis of build, operate and transfer, or it will be any other model which they will be looking at.
Revisiting, actually he's talking of revisiting and PP model. Yes,
in terms of capital expenditure, if you look at the medium-term fiscal policy statement, compared to the revised estimates in 2014-15, where the capital expenditure is expected to be at 1.2%, the budget estimates actually you see the decline to 1.1% in terms of the public capital expenditure. Within the
last year revised estimate and budget estimate? Or?
Yes, the revised estimate. Okay. Last year revised estimate, it shows 1.2% for the capital expenditure. Now the budgeted one is 1%. Actually there is a slight decline. But within the public capital expenditure, the infrastructure investment is going to be maybe 0.7% of GDP. In fact, in his speech, he says 70,000 crores is the infrastructure investment. Small.
He himself says that it's not 70,000 crores is not what we. Meanwhile, there are some from various political parties and leaders. Let's have a look at that.
कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर का जो उन्होंने टैक्स घटाया है, ये इस बजट की सबसे मुख्य बात है। पर जो उम्मीद थी कि ये बजट से हमारे ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में विकास और प्रगति होगी, क्रय शक्ति बढ़ेगी। जब तक इस देश में क्रय शक्ति खरीदने की ताकत ना बढ़े, तब तक ये अपने देश की अर्थव्यवस्था सुधर नहीं सकती। कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर का जो उन्होंने टैक्स घटाया है, ये इस बजट की सबसे मुख्य बात है। पर जो उम्मीद थी कि ये बजट से हमारे ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में विकास और प्रगति होगी, बढ़ेगी। जब तक इस देश में क्रय शक्ति खरीदने की ताकत ना बढ़े, तब तक ये अपनी देश की अर्थव्यवस्था सुधर नहीं सकती।
This budget is nothing more than a jugglery of words. सिवाय पूंजीपतियों को किसी को कोई रिलीफ नहीं मिली। कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स 30% से घटाकर 25% किया गया है। मिडिल क्लास और जो कम आमदनी वाला वर्ग है उनको किसी किस्म की कोई राहत नहीं दी गई है।
हम इस बजट को जो है वो देश की प्रोग्रेस एंड प्रॉस्पेरिटी का गजट के रूप में देखते हैं। ये बजट कि देश की समृद्धि और देश के विकास का गजट है और जिस तरह से देश के गांव, गरीब, किसान, झुग्गी झोपड़ी के इंसान, महिला और नौजवान, हर समाज के हर वर्ग को प्रगति की मुख्य धारा में शामिल करने की कोशिश इस बजट के माध्यम से की गई है।
और अब चलते हैं, रक्षा मंत्री मनोहर पर्रिकर इस समय मीडिया से बात कर रहे हैं इस बजट के बारे में। सुनते हैं क्या कहते हैं।
Comparing the amount of money increase share with the states, I think he has done very well. Thank you. 9.5 out of 10. आप गाड़ी में जाएंगे। 9.5 मार्क मेरे हिसाब से। Done an extremely good job in spite of fact that he has to shell out almost 15-20% to the states extra. So while controlling everything, done a good job, particularly towards poor of the society and the weaker section. Thank you.
हमारी संवाददाता अनु दीवान के पास पीएचडी चैम्बर में वो हमारे कुछ मेहमानों के साथ मौजूद हैं। अनु, किस तरह का रिएक्शन मिल रहा है आज के केंद्रीय बजट के बारे में वहाँ?
जी बिल्कुल अमृता, मेरे साथ प्रेसिडेंट हैं पीएचडी चैम्बर के, मैं सीधा उन्हीं के पास चलती हूँ। सर, इस पूरे बजट की बात करें तो क्या आपकी पहली प्रतिक्रिया क्या है?
हम सोचते हैं ओवरऑल ये अच्छा बजट है, लेकिन इंडस्ट्रियल एक्टिविटी के लिए थोड़ा और इनको बेनिफिट्स देने चाहिए थे। जैसे ये ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर में पहले इन्होंने थोड़ी ड्यूटी कम करी थी, अब वो हम सोच रहे थे कि एग्जाम्पशन फिर से आएगा, वो नहीं आया है। और ये जो सर्विस टैक्स और एक्साइज ड्यूटी थोड़ी सी बढ़ाई है, वो ऑब्वियसली गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज को थोड़ा महंगा करेगी, तो ये नहीं करना था।
सर बिल्कुल, जिस तरह सर्विस टैक्स बढ़ा है तो जाहिर सी बात है इसमें मिडिल क्लास के लिए बजट में कुछ दिखा नहीं खास।
मिडिल क्लास के लिए दो एरियाज में डेफिनेटली है। एक जो इन्होंने इंश्योरेंस की बात करी है और एग्जेम्पशंस दिए हैं, और दूसरी एरिया इन्होंने जो ट्रांसपोर्ट अलाउंस में डेफिनेटली बेनिफिट दिया है। तो ये दो मिला के इनका इफेक्ट तो पॉजिटिव होएगा मिडिल क्लास के लिए, और पहली बार बहुत सालों में है कि जो मिडिल क्लास को डायरेक्टली इन टैक्सेस के बेनिफिट मिल रहे हैं।
जैसे बिल्कुल हम देखते हैं कि जब से नरेंद्र मोदी का स्वच्छ भारत अभियान, स्किल डेवलपमेंट और मेक इन इंडिया चला है, इस बजट में हमें नया टर्म देखने को मिला पेंशन सोसाइटी। वो पेंशन सोसाइटी किस तरह से केटर करेगी, क्या बेनिफिट्स होंगे, आप आम भाषा में समझाएं तो।
देखिए, पेंशन ये होती है कि जो आपने अपनी जिंदगी में कमाया है उसका कुछ भाग आप अलग से बैंक में रख दें, सेविंग होती है, और उससे बाजिंदगी आपको रिटायरमेंट के बाद पैसे मिलते रहते हैं। तो ये बहुत ही डिजायरेबल चीज़ है, क्योंकि हम देखते हैं कि वृद्ध अवस्था में लोग के पास पैसे नहीं होते, वो फिर बेसिकली सोसाइटी पे बहुत डिपेंडेंट हो जाते हैं, अपनी फैमिलीज पे डिपेंडेंट हो जाते हैं। और आपको पता है जमाने में थोड़ी आर्थिक इंडिपेंडेंस बहुत ज़रूरी है। तो इसके वजह से मैं सोचता हूँ कि ये जो पेंशन सोसाइटी की बात कर रहे हैं, ये बहुत ही अच्छी चीज़ है और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को इसमें जाना चाहिए।
टैक्स स्लैब में भी कोई चेंज नहीं हुआ, जैसे सभी लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर तो टैक्स स्लैब होगा उसमें बदलाव आएगा, लेकिन कोई चेंज नहीं।
अब इसका जब तक हम फाइन डिटेल्स नहीं देखेंगे, क्योंकि वित्त मंत्री जी ने ये भी कहा था कि 4.5 लाख तक एग्जेम्पशन होएगा, तो अब ये कैसे होएगा, किस फॉर्म में होएगा, वो तो डिटेल देख के लगभग बताएंगे।
वित्त मंत्री ने ब्लैक मनी के लिए भी एक कानून की बात की है, क्या लगता है कि वो जो कानून है उसमें किसी तरह जो अब तक ऑपोजिशन ब्लैक मनी को लेकर एनडीए गवर्नमेंट को टारगेट करता आया है?
इनको ब्लैक मनी के अगेंस्ट लेजिस्लेशन लाना चाहिए, इफेक्टिव लेजिस्लेशन लाना चाहिए। वित्त मंत्री जी अपने आप लॉयर हैं, तो अच्छा ड्राफ्ट करके ऐसा लेजिस्लेशन लाना चाहिए जिससे जो ब्लैक मनी लेते हैं या रखते हैं उनको पेनल्टी हो, और जो भी एक्शन लेना चाहिए गवर्नमेंट को लेना चाहिए। लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम जो ऑनेस्ट आदमी है उसको इसके घेरे में हैरेसमेंट नहीं होनी चाहिए।
सर बिल्कुल, जिस तरह
हमसे बात कर रही थी और उनके गेस्ट ये कह रहे थे कि सरकार की तरफ से जो आज बजट पेश किया गया है उसमें कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट की तरफ जोर बढ़ावा देने की कोशिश जरूर की गई है। अच्छी बात अगर हम देखें तो यह है कि ब्लैक मनी रोकने के लिए एक तरह से मैसेज दिया गया है, सोशल सिक्योरिटी फॉर पुअर है और कॉर्पोरेट के लिए राहत देने की बातें कही गई हैं। लेकिन अगर नेगेटिव देखा जाए तो फिस्कल डेफिसिट के कंसोलिडेशन को डेफर कर दिया गया है और दूसरी तरफ टैक्स पेयर्स को नहीं है। और अगर आम कंज्यूमरेबल जो आइटम्स हैं, चाहे वो फोन कॉल्स हो, चाहे वो सिगरेट हो, चाहे वो बाहर जाकर खाना खाना हो या रेस्टोरेंट में जाना हो, या इस तरह की जो आम मध्य की जो छोटी छोटी जरूरतें हैं, उनके मद्देनजर देखा जाए तो थोड़ी सी महंगाई आ सकती है। हालांकि जानकार ये भी कह रहे हैं कि 4.5 लाख का करीब आम आदमी को सेवाकर में छूट भी मिलने का दावा किया। अब उसकी निटिग्रिटी आने वाले वक्त में पता चलेगी, लेकिन इस वक्त हम चलते हैं बैंगलोर। हमारे सहयोगी अमृतांशु राय वहां पर मौजूद हैं कुछ मेहमानों के साथ।
अमृता, सबसे पहले तो जो सेंस हम लोगों को मिला है उससे तो यही लग रहा है कि वित्त मंत्री ने कोई भी ऐसा कदम नहीं उठाया है जिससे कि ग्रोथ में जो कंपोनेंट्स हैं उसमें किसी भी तरह का डर या भय पैदा हो। और ज्यादा बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ है प्रोफेसर चरण सिंह। प्रोफेसर चरण सिंह इज द RBI चेयर professor of economics, and he was one of the persons who recommended to the government on forming a committee for debt management of the government debt sir, how would you categorize this budget? Good, bad, not so good? How?
I think it's a very good budget. They have taken care of many things in the budget. If you look at budget, is basically the union finance minister's speech is just not an accounting exercise. It's basically a policy laying out exercise. And if you measure it on that account, this budget is a superb budget. After a long time, many bold decisions have been taken in the budget. Some of you just imagine the debt management office announced many years ago, but never created. He has done it at one bang. The monetary policy framework, there was no clarity what should be done on inflation targeting. He has come out strongly and saying, I'm going to do an agreement on that. Gold is a very sensitive issue in our country, and he has brought gold on the table, and he said he was going to monetize gold to 21,000 tons of gold. So there's lots of temple gold, there's lots of household gold that he has brought into the ambit.
And then about the black money, sir, of the impact of, see, the finance minister could have easily gone ahead and said that we will bring in a legislation on black money. But he went a step further and elaborated on the provisions and the stringent provisions. What is the attempt? What is his intention in doing so?
I think the black money thing is another very bold step to come out and give a framework of how you are going to handle black money. Firstly, such stringent punishments that he has announced, 10 years and 7 years of imprisonment if the wealth is out. I think this is a very bold step that he has taken. Once generating of black money and holding it outside the country is stopped, you will see the economy will prosper itself within the country.
Do you see it coming back anyway?
I'm sure it's going to come back very soon, and I think he should give a provision that this is the date from which we are going to start regulating and monitoring, and you will find there's going to be a flow of money back into the country. Once that black money which is stashed out comes within the borders of the country, obviously it's going to lead to liquidity, it's going to lead to growth. It's probably going to either get into the manufacturing sector or create demand for the manufacturing sector. I think that is how it will lead to better growth. Also, he is talking in terms of number of houses that he wants to build, rural and urban, 2 crores and 4 crores. Each of the house involves 270 industries. If these houses start getting constructed, which is very labor intensive, then those 270 industries also get an impetus.
We'll get back. So, Amrita and Girish, the sense that I'm getting out here is that the finance minister has somehow tried to get in money from nowhere. Nowhere can be defined getting the black money which is abroad, stashed abroad to India, and second, gold, huge reserves of gold in India, and he's trying to monetize that. So he's got money from nowhere suddenly, and it's a beautiful piece of jugglery by the finance minister.
ब्लैक मनी को रोकने की भी कोशिश की गई है और बेनामी पर भी नजर रखने की कोशिश में है, लेकिन पॉलिटिकल नजर से देखें तो ये बजट कैसा है, आइए दिखाते हैं कुछ राजनीतिक प्रतिक्रियाएं।
ये जो आज भारतीय जनता पार्टी नेतृत्व में एनडीए की गवर्नमेंट ने तो अपना जो पहला पूर्ण जो बजट रखा है, जनरल बजट रखा है, तो ये बजट हमें देश की आम जनता के हिसाब से कोई प्रैक्टिकल नजर नहीं आ रहा है। और इतना ही नहीं, एक तरफ सरकार ने ये कहा है कि हम कोई नया कोई टैक्स नहीं लगाएंगे, लेकिन नट साल में हम इस नतीजे पर पहुंचते हैं कि जितने भी फैसले लिए गए हैं इस सरकार में, तो जैसे इस सरकार में ये कहा गया है इस बजट में कि ज्यादा निवेश करने पर टैक्स में छूट मिलेगी, कंपनियों पर टैक्स घटेगा। तो इससे ऐसा ये लगता है कि ये जो पूरा जो बजट है तो घूम फिर कर तो जो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियां हैं, बड़े बड़े उद्योगपति हैं, धन्ना सेठ है, तो उनके हित को ध्यान में रखकर ये बजट तैयार किया गया है। आम जनता के हित में ये बजट हमें कोई ज्यादा प्रैक्टिकल नजर नहीं आता।
टैक्स में भी कोई छूट नहीं दी।
Okay, Srinivasan, coming back to this thing, we are just seeing some of the graphs which are coming on our screens. It's quite obvious that some of the social sector schemes seems to have taken a hit. Most of the schemes have got less allocations than what it had in the previous years.
Certainly, I think this is part of a very, clearly laid out
Abhiyan has come down, you can see on the screens.
Yes.
22,000 crore and मनरेगा पे 3699 crore 50, हालांकि थोड़ा सा मामूली बढ़ोतरी देखने को मिली, मामूली बढ़ोतरी।
But the social sector seems to have taken a hit.
लेकिन हेल्थ मिशन पे काफी पैसे कम करने की बात है।
आवास योजना, ICDS, इंदिरा आवास योजना,
हालांकि ICDS में
earlier we thought that
मिड डे मील पे तो काफी 13,000 करोड़ से अब 8,900 करोड़ कर दिया गया है और हेल्थ मिशन पे भी काफी कम कर दिया गया है।
Srinivasan, and I want all of you to respond to this. I think, please tell me if I am right. It's very clear the government after the 14th finance, accepting the 14th finance commission, huge increase in allocations to the states. Now it expects the states to take care of part of these budgets. Is that the intention?
That is very clearly the intention. There are about 66 centrally sponsored schemes running right now. The Finance Commission itself has identified about 30 schemes which can be transferred to the states. Devolution has already been promised. The other thing is that these kind of changes are going to happen. Many of these schemes were introduced during the 10 years of UPA regime. This government was very clear that it plans to wind down many of those, maybe come up with alternative ones of its own. More importantly, allow the states to also choose what kind of schemes to run, what areas to focus on, whether it's health or education or this thing. So in an ideal world, I think this is a very progressive step. The question is that the world is not ideal, as we all know. And what will actually happen down the line? So I think in the short term there will be some hit. Despite the leakages, there were some people getting benefits from these schemes. Those are going to be hit. That hit is already. You see, the allocations have been cut for many schemes even in the current year.
Right.
Monies have not been paid out, and if you talk to the potential recipients, you get a lot of feedback saying that the money is not coming.
No, that is okay. The JAM, they are talking of JAM,
Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar or mobile.
And hopefully that JAM is going to, plug the leakages. That's what they're talking about. But Rajya Sabha session will go and see what's happening in the Rajya Sabha, and we'll come back soon after that.
माननीय सभासदों, माननीय सभा
The Budget General 2015-16.
Mr. Chairman, sir, I beg to lay on the table a statement in English and Hindi of the estimated receipts of expenditure of the government for the year 2015-16.
Fiscal Policy Statements 2015-16.
I beg to lay on the table of the House under subsection 1 of section 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003, a copy each in English and Hindi of the following papers: Macroeconomic Framework Statement, Medium-Term Fiscal Policy Statement, Fiscal Policy Strategy Statement.
The House stands adjourned till 11 day 2nd of March 2015.
Okay, welcome back. No, we'll continue that discussion about the social sector schemes, how the allocations have been reduced. Banamurthy, it's very evident what Srinivasan also was saying, that the center is now shifting the responsibility onto the states.
Yes. No, I think that's the whole philosophy of the 14th Finance Commission.
Absolutely.
We are in a transition phase where, at least for the next 2 years, when the 12th plan ends, the central government still have to finance some of these centrally sponsored schemes. I think after that we will see even this kind of allocations will not be there in the budget.
Next year we may not see the further reduction next year. You think that's a positive thing?
You know, there is a concern.
अगर ऐसा ही है तो फिर सेस बढ़ाने की क्या जरूरत है? सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन पे, हायर एजुकेशन पे और सर्व शिक्षा पे तो ऑलरेडी लगता है.
इसको जवाब देने के लिए एक बड़े क्वेश्चन को पहले जवाब दे देते हैं कि आप देखिए, यदि आप कोई चीज अमाउंट रखते हैं कि इसको खर्च करना है पर्टिकुलर चीज के लिए, तो आपका कंट्रोल उसके ऊपर होना चाहिए. यदि आपका कंट्रोल नहीं है, एंड इफ यू earmark certain amount for the expenditure, then in that case, you know, whether that amount is being spent for the rightful purposes or not is totally beyond your control. And therefore it is very important that if you are spending something, then you should know what amount you are spending, how it is being spent. इसी के कंटिन्यूएशन में आप देखिए, जैसे कि उन्होंने कहा कि कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स का रेट घटा देंगे, बट साथ ही साथ जो एग्जेम्पशंस एंड रिलीफ हैं उसको हटा देंगे. आज हम लोग 30% रेट की बात करते हैं, लेकिन इफ यू कंसीडर ऑल द एग्जेम्पशंस, रिलीफ एंड लाइक दैट, देन द इफेक्टिव टैक्स रेट कम्स टू हार्डली 24%.
He himself said that, in fact.
23%.
He said 26%. 23%. So what will be the impact of reducing it to 25%?
So एक तरह से on the I mean at the end of the day, it is, I mean, you know, for the government exchequer, because from 23% it goes to 25%. The number of exemptions are less, so the government would know, I mean, what's the amount it is getting. The other very important point here is that all these exemptions which are granted, there is no control. Whether, I mean, you know, who is
and also he spoke of, which is because there's a discretion Raj.
Yes.
You know, he's trying to eliminate the discretion.
And the maximum number of litigation giris is in respect of these exemptions.
Absolutely.
So they are, I mean, trying to control that. And when taking your question, you know, Amrita, is that, you know, they are the expenses which can be controlled more at the you know, the ground level people, which is the state government. So it is better that to do that. But apart from that, there are certain expenses which central government cannot avoid. I mean, you know, the defense expenditure, that certain infrastructure expenses which run across, I mean, you know, go across states. For that, I mean, the money is needed, and therefore they have to increase somewhere, I mean, whether in the form of says or like that. But one very important thing is tax which has gone up. And as I said earlier, this increase in the service tax appears to me to be a move towards, GST when it is coming next year. So they have to be brought in line, and the number which the people are looking at, whether it will be closer to 25, taking all the taxes together. So they are trying to rationalize this, and it will take not
मतलब
1
उस
year.
लेवल पे पहुंचाना है जहां जीएसटी को
एक certain rate उनके दिमाग में जो होगा उसके ऊपर वो ले जाना चाहिए.
One of the commentators was saying that it's better that the GST at a higher level to start with, so that over a period of time you can reduce it, and then till the time that it gets stabilized.
So there is, the talk which is there, it's something like 26-27%. So bring it down to less than 25% is the amount which is the rate which the industry would be very comfortable with to start with. So all these move are appearing to be, moving towards a GST with
लेकिन ओवरऑल सोशल सेक्टर पर क्या आपको लग रहा है कि सरकार का ध्यान कुछ कम हो रहा है? बहुत दिनों से ये मांग हो रही थी कि सब्सिडीज को कम किया जाए और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे ज्यादा जोर दिया जाए ताकि ग्रोथ को थोड़ा ठीक किया जा सके, इंडस्ट्री को थोड़ा ठीक किया जा सके, तो उस तरफ सरकार ने
add to what she is saying, Bhanumurthy, and I want both you and Srinivasan to respond to this. He doesn't talk much about subsidies. Then there is no, he never focused on the issue of subsidies, but I'm sure when we look at the final print, we will find out exactly what the government is up to on this.
So I think to answer your question, I think this is the whole philosophy of expansionary fiscal consolidation is that reduce the subsidies, create this fiscal space for capital expenditure, and overall bring down the fiscal deficit. I think that is the whole mantra of the fiscal consolidation. It looks like the budget has tried to address the expansionary fiscal consolidation, but as Mr. Girish pointed out, it will be interesting to see implications on food security as well. This government is really lucky that this year the oil subsidy has come down drastically.
That is the one big huge.
Yes.
Srinivasan, how do you look at this?
I think the overall direction is to reduce subsidy. There has been another trend which is not something new to this government, even the UPA government was attempting to do that, which is essentially to replace direct delivery of services, healthcare or education.
No, I'm talking of as far as subsidies are concerned. There was a fertilizer subsidy, for instance, or food subsidy. He has not made any direct mention of this. But we will have to look into the small. That's very important to see what is what.
I think we'll have to look into the details for it. There are certain constitutional obligations which you cannot avoid. Food security is an act of parliament.
Absolutely.
He'll have to provide for it. So. There are legal obligations for food security, etc., which he will not avoid. They will find a workaround to it. But the larger direction, if you see, is that the government is trying to sort of get out of direct delivery of social services, healthcare, education, etc. You provide certain enablers. So right to education ho gaya, and so you have access to whatever is being created even by the private sector. Similarly, in healthcare, instead of actually building dispensaries and hospitals, you give insurance, So it is a partial solution because at the end of the day has to create that infrastructure that has at an affordable cost. There is no point giving a universal healthcare insurance or cover of 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. If the cost of healthcare for any serious disease is way beyond this limit. So, this is something which needs to be addressed, and this is something where I think there is room to debate on whether the government should in fact be vacating these spaces.
Which spaces? The spaces
basically in the creation of social infrastructure. I'm talking about education, I'm talking about
whether they should vacate this space.
Whether the government is de facto vacating, allocation kam hone ka matlab kya hai? They're not going to build any more hospitals.
The center is vacating the space and putting the owners on the state.
2022 तक हम गरीबी मिटाने की पूरा प्रयास करेंगे, तो क्या इस स्टेप से गरीबी
response is on the state. The responsibility seems to be more and more on the states.
Yes, I think this is the cooperative federalism that we are talking
Exactly.
about, where the responsibility would be shifted at the state level. The reasons why the devolution package is increased. But having said
Not just
that,
as far as the devolution is concerned, very interesting.
Yeah.
He says devolution, total gross tax receipts, 14,49,490 crores. Out of that, devolution to the state we estimated at 5,23,958
Finance
crores.
Commission devolution.
Finance Commission devolution. Of central will be 9,19,842.
Yes.
But then other things are going to be added, as Finance Minister made it clear, and then
It's going to be 62%.
62% of the total
revenues.
Total revenues of the center will be shifted to the states.
Yes, yes.
22% of what 4th Finance Commission, 14th Finance Commission says, and addition 20%.
Yes.
Through various central government schemes. So it's very clear, cooperative federalism will have to take responsibility for most of these social sector schemes.
Yes.
But that is still now, means how much state governments are funding on that social sector and these kind of...
No, but these are all tied grants. Previously we used to have, but now what the Finance Commission recommending is the untied grants of 42%, and then 20%, which is the program that are continuing, like we have seen DGA, National Rural Health
So
Mission.
untied grants, Bhanumurthy, means that the states will have more flexibility to use those funds
Yes.
in the way they want.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it that?
Yeah, I think they're very free to spend and free projects which is suitable, which is relevant for their states, instead of some of the projects coming from the central government.
One size fit all
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
situation which used to be
Yes.
there.
जी, और अभी हमें चलना पड़ेगा फिक्की, हमारी संवाददाता कृति मिश्रा वहां पर कॉर्पोरेट जगत के लोगों के साथ हैं। कृति, किस तरह के और रिएक्शन आपको मिल रहे हैं? अब तो कॉर्पोरेट जगत को थोड़ा खुश होना चाहिए जिस तरह से फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के बजट भाषण में छूट मिली है कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर को।
Right, Amrita. I'm joined by Mr. Arish Sharma. He has been the former chairman of ONGC, and right now he is heading FICCI's hydrocarbon unit. So welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. Correct me if I'm wrong if I say that this budget was hollow for oil and gas sector.
Oh, you have said what? Because I find after a long time there is no mention in the budget anything about oil and gas sector. There were some reforms expected for the exploration, because the new exploration, next round of exploration is to be announced. It was expected some reforms will be announced. There's nothing mentioned on that. And as it is on the positive side, it was apprehended that customs duty will be imposed on crude oil. It has not been imposed. So the oil marketing companies, they would be taking a sigh of relief. And there's absolutely no mention about the subsidy sharing mechanism. That has been a major issue, even that ONGC, the divestment program is getting deferred because of the lack of any clarity about the mechanism of the subsidy sharing. The budget also does not mention any numbers, any intent, any policy statement. So that's worrisome.
Absolutely. The corporate world was keenly looking for divestment of
which have to, come up, emerge before the industry will start thinking of really investing.
और वो ये भी कह रहे हैं कि माहौल को और ज्यादा आसान बनाने की जरूरत है ताकि हमें सिंगापुर या दूसरे स्विट्जरलैंड में जाके बिजनेस करने के बजाय यहाँ पर हमें लगे कि हम फायदा कमा सकते हैं.
So, when we look at, I buy what Mr. Illa was trying to indicate. The thing is that when you are talking about investors coming to India, they will come for two purposes. One is to use
Sorry to intervene. I am not just talking of investors coming to India, the foreign investors.
Or the investors
themselves investing in India because they've been investing abroad.
Yeah. So here, so far as an investor is concerned, he is